You a third degree black belt now?
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
And co-owner and head coach at Flow Martial Arts?
I sure am.
All right, sweet. That's what we'll say then.
Nice.
All right. I literally mess this up pretty much every time. So
Yeah, no worries. Have you got used to doing this yet?
I can't do this shit, mate.
No.
yeah, you just flat refuse.
I just flat refuse. Can't do that. I don't even like being on camera, really. But
I'm hoping I'll give it another 6 months when I continue to regress at jiu-jitsu and he gets better and we're on a similar level. And then we'll maybe...
we'll be long, mate.
Yeah, we'll just have a roll to the death for every decision that we make in business and figure that out.
That'll be a minute then.
Right, okay, here we go. Welcome to the Everyday Perspective podcast. Today we're speaking Brazilian Jiu Jitsu with Kenny Baker. Kenny Baker is a third degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, co-owner and head coach at Flow Martial Arts.
Yep.
Welcome. How are you, mate?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a nice little setup you have here.
A little bit closer to your mouth there, mate. Take it with you. It's fine.
Good.
Just pull it out.
I'm going to break something.
Nah, mate, you
I'm
won't
going to break
It's fine.
something
It's nice.
or I'm going to
No.
knock this glass
There's no limbs near you, mate. You're fine. It's all right. It's all good. I was thinking this is quite an interesting dynamic because you've been doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu now for, it must be what, 20 years?
Yeah, 2004 properly.
Yeah. It's a long time. So there's you and then Danny, 8 months.
Yeah, 8 months. Yeah, fresh.
Yeah. And then I've been doing it on and off for like 15 years. So we've got someone who's done it for a long time who got really good.
You've trained about 3 times in 15 years.
Yeah, it's about
I tell you
that.
what, to watch 3 times.
Well, you've literally got like me, who's got quite an old school kind of mentality to it, but I'm just really rubbish at Brazilian Jiu Jitsu.
Oh.
Kenny, who's really good, and then you've got you still learning. So
Yeah,
interesting
fucking
dynamic.
Fresh, mate. No, fresh. Everything's new.
Mate, you should have held your ground there and said, no, I'm damn good.
The thing is, if I say that in front of you, I'll never live it down. So I'll just be humble. Do you know what I mean? I'll just always say I'm shit.
Have you guys rolled yet then? Have you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's
Yeah, he kicks my ass all the time.
Not yet, mate. Nearly.
No, I think I do all right. I think I put enough hours in probably 10 years ago that I can still hang with white belts just about.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just.
Yeah.
They're getting good though, like the younger ones are getting really good.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time actually, hence the book. But obviously when I first met you, I think you were a blue belt.
Yeah.
And this was back, as you say, like years and years ago.
Right. Jesus.
I mean, a long time ago for a couple of 25-year-olds, right?
You're old as fuck, mate.
But back then it was mad, wasn't it? Because you occasionally got a Brazilian over doing a seminar.
Yeah.
We had a few books. There was no YouTube.
No, you got the odd VHS.
Yeah.
Crackly. With broken English. Okay,
Yeah.
my friend, what you gonna do now? You're gonna grab the arm. It's the leg.
Was it like that? Was it?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But it was all like, it wasn't just that, it was the way they was teaching back then. It's just a lot of random moves, isn't it? Nothing was like organised.
It wasn't methodical.
No,
It wasn't going from
no,
like
it's just
Pascal.
basically lots of possibilities that I talk about.
Okay.
Lots of singular techniques and situations. Yeah. Crazy how much, because when I started, when I was doing it, the people that really got involved in it were just already martial artists, people that knew about fighting, liked martial arts. So it was just like, you had this dynamic where it was just mainly fighters that were doing it for fighting.
Right. What, for like kind of MMA?
Yeah, it was called
MMA,
Valley Tudo
yeah.
back then on No Hold Bars. But it's when I was doing it, I just enjoyed it. But like, I loved it, and I always thought, why is this not more popular? And I always thought if it got out there, it would be more popular. But now when I look at it, it's absolutely insane to think like the UFC, and because the UFC, then like the martial arts like jiu-jitsu have come through. It's like mental to think how popular it's got so quickly. Even though I thought it would, it's still a bit surreal to realise it actually has got to the point.
It must be really weird for you as well, like especially like doing it at its like infancy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like doing it when it.
Well, I mean, it wasn't the infancy so much as like, but it was over here. Like we're always like 10 years behind America with a lot of things when it comes to sports and stuff. So to us, it was still bare knuckle kind of vibes and undergroundy. And people would see, like I was watching it, but what the hell is this? It's like, what I'm watching that for? It's a bit weird. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
Yeah, but even now though, people that are not into martial arts or not into jiu-jitsu, some people just don't have a fucking clue what it is, do they? You know, and then you'll say you do jiu-jitsu, and they'll think that's fucking judo. or karate or some shit like that, you know, and then you're like, nah, it's not quite like that.
Yeah. You started with karate, didn't you, originally?
Yeah, when I was a kid. Well, actually, I'd done a few sessions of judo. But yeah, I'd done karate. I was a massive Jean-Claude Van Damme fan. So I was obsessed with karate for a long time. And boxing a little bit as well, quite a bit. But boxing was more like the roots of a lot of people in my family done boxing.
Right.
But I like karate. But I like both.
Striking.
But I always think, it's going back to the other thing, it was UFC 40 that I always thought was the one that sort of everyone talks about the Ultimate Fighter show, but when UFC 40 happened, it was, I remember Ken Shamrock and Tito Ortiz.
Was that, yeah, okay. I was
Remember the first one?
Yeah.
And because Ken Shamrock was quite a known name because he went off and done the whole WWF thing.
Yeah, that's what I knew.
And then he come back and because he brought a big crowd with him. And I remember that show, that UFC show, and I was like, it was very different to all the other ones. It just had something about it. And I was like, ooh.
Well, I think that's when they made it a bit more of a spectacle, wasn't it? Because that's when I think Tito come down with the flags, right?
Yeah,
and the fire and stuff.
A couple of quite a few like high-end celebrities in it in the audience at that point. I was like, oh, I've not really seen that before.
So before that, was it like just really like, I don't know, was it like, was it just small? Was it like a small event?
Yeah, it was definitely smaller, but it was just something about that show had changed, and it was really from that point I always thought it just kept propelling forward and forward. And then obviously the Ultimate Fighter show, Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner, and obviously done its thing. But yeah. So
with like UFC and stuff, was jiu-jitsu, was it in it from the early offset? Like was jiu-jitsu really good in the early UFC? Did people who've done that like fuck everyone up?
Yeah, so it was the Gracies, wasn't it? That basically brought the UFC concept to the UK. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Brazil they had the Vale Tudo, which Kenny already mentioned, which was no holds barred. And that was kind of how they established Brazilian Jiu Jitsu as a dominant martial art. And then they brought it to the UK, to the US, and then used that as a kind of platform, I think, to kind of pit it against other martial arts.
Yeah, is that what they done, was it?
Yeah, and they just basically made a show where, I mean, there's all sorts of different rumours on how they set it up and handpick people, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. It's like they got a bunch of martial artists in a cage with different styles, and it was no rules, essentially. There was a couple of rules, but like there were no rules generally. And you know, you get these big guys that are all roided up and stuff, and you're like, well,
what, just untrained, but just fucking massive.
Look at the size of him, he looks great. And then Hoist Gracie was there, like, with his pajamas on and skinny old Hoist, and I was like, Jesus, he's going to get fucked up. And then he didn't. He brought something to the table that no one had ever seen before. Well, not a lot of people have seen before, and But you say not a lot of people have seen it before, but ultimately it's also what we were doing thousands of years ago for a long, long time, which is,
like
the Greeks, you know,
wrestling,
and crazy and all that stuff.
Yeah, so, true.
You know, I saw a picture the other day of an old drawing or something of those times in the Greeks, and they were playing a De La Riva guard.
Fuck off.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
No way.
You think about it, they'd done that for thousands of years. They had nothing else going for them. They were fighting to the death, ultimately.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to know some shit. And to sit here and think there's nothing new under the sun. To sit here and think we know what we're doing, we've advanced it and we've evolved it. They were doing it for thousands of years. Yeah. You know what I mean?
With fucking much bigger stakes.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, your training's a bit different for that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's cool. We're kind of mindful of our audience. I'm sure we're going to get lots of jiu-jitsu guys watching this. But there's hopefully going to be lots of people who have no fucking idea about martial arts or what jiu-jitsu is. So I guess just mindful of that. Can you explain, I guess in a nutshell, what Brazilian jiu-jitsu is and what style of fighting and martial art it is?
Well, it's grappling. So
I'm not even sure people would know what grappling means.
So like it's a mixture of wrestling, judo, and submission grappling. So the point being is to get hold of your opponent, take them down to the floor, control them, pin them, and ultimately look for either a choke or a joint lock.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, that's pretty much what it is. Using leverage, pressure, and different things to outmaneuver your opponent, no matter, you know, it's sort of designed, but it's because of the way it works and it's leverage and that it's a lot more applicable to use against bigger people, especially if they don't know what they're doing. Unlike, I guess, striking sports, which is always slightly more attribute based in the sense that, like, if you're taller or bigger or if you're more athletic, you have a lot more advantage on your side. So and also like you're not going to get damaged in the same way as if you get into a fist fight, you know. So there's that. But yeah, that's it. It's just the art of grappling, controlling your opponent physically, and bending them up like a pretzel.
Sounds amazing. We already kind of touched on it a little bit with chatting about the UFC and how that was kind of, I guess, come out dominant over other martial arts. But I guess people are going to ask the question, what is the best, most effective martial art? You've kind of already answered the question, but do you still think it's Brazilian Jiu Jitsu?
I think it's any form of grappling, to be honest. I mean, do you know, this is, I find it like a silly argument because there's so many. Is it best for what? Actual, as in a 1-on-1 fight with somebody on the street, that type of thing? Well, maybe, but there's a lot of variables that come along with that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of variables, but singularly, if I had to choose one, say for my daughters, then yeah, it'd be a form of grappling art, whether it's judo or sambo or something like this. Thing with jiu-jitsu is it's very good. It has its flaws too, but I try not to look at the modern martial art or jiu-jitsu of just on its own singular how it used to be. I look at grappling as grappling.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Grappling is grappling. I mean, from the outside, like you just said, from the outside in, if you didn't understand or ever see any of it, and you saw judo, sambo, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, you ain't really going to tell the difference. You're just going to think it's the same thing because ultimately it is. It is different rule sets and points to it, but it's still grappling.
Yeah,
and I think that's how people these days. I mean, look at Gordon Ryan. This is how they're looking at it. It's grappling is grappling.
Yeah,
you use what's effective when it's effective. You know?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And you kind of touched on it again already, but in a street fight, obviously we talk about the variables. I guess some of those might be: are they carrying a weapon? Do they have any friends around?
Yeah.
But I know this is like a common argument you get on.
I think for me, like jiu-jitsu, coming from someone who's never done any martial art before I started jiu-jitsu, so I had no clue. I always played football and sport and stuff, but I never got into martial arts. And then you go in there and you kind of have this thing that you can hold yourself, that you're okay, and then you go in and you get fucked up by like a 70 kilo girl, 60 kilo girl, and then you realise, if someone's a bit trained, they're going to beat you.
Well, it's the thing as well. Like, if you got somebody
control me, that's what I would say. Control me. Like you got someone like Jordan,
but anybody that's like used their bodies are going to be more adapted using their bodies in situations, right? It's awareness. So like, if you're a basketball player and you have, you know, whatever, football, rugby player, and you have some other guy down the pub that's never really done anything, like he's going to be more athletical. So really a lot of the times the situation of a fight is understanding timing, distance, range, having balance.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't realise that though.
No.
A lot of people who are just, you know, out there drinking in pubs, just being fucking dickheads in general. They poor, yeah, aggressive.
I haven't drank for 5 months.
Have you not?
No, stop drinking.
No, definitely had a drink when you got that haircut, there, didn't you?
Fucking hell. But yeah, they don't know that. Do you know what I mean? They don't know that someone who's trained, and most of the people that are trained, and they just don't look at times. Do you know what I mean? It's quite knowing that you can handle.
Men generally think they can handle themselves. They live in a little ego bubble.
Yeah, 100%.
They walk around thinking, "Ooh, yeah, but bro, like when I go,
I'm crazy.
Like I don't do crazy. I do karate." It's just, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
It's sort of natural and normal for men to be that way as well.
Yeah,
you know, we should be a little bit that way.
It's just ego, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, but it's what you do when you have a taste of reality. How do you behave after that? Like I see it, it's not so much these days because a lot of people are aware of it, but like earlier days, you get a tough guy come in, get a person half his size, pin him to the floor, submit him over and over and over, like he's nothing. And how do they act then? It's like, well, they make two choices from that point. Everything they thought they were in their little ego bubble, they're now not. It's been popped. Boop. Okay, so they go two things. They never turn up again because they can't handle the truth. Okay, and then they'll carry on living the lie. And
have you seen that a lot?
Not so much, like in the earlier days more, but you'd be like, they'd recreate their little bubble and make excuses for why that happened, right? Or and this is what's beautiful, is when people suddenly go, holy shit, like, what the fuck? You know, and that's the beautiful thing, because if they can recognize that and be honest about that, like, I'm not what I thought I was, how the hell did that happen? They'll turn up again, because now they're curious, you know, being honest with themselves. And when you can be honest with yourself and break yourself down like that, okay, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a piece of shit in the universe. I didn't realize this. I thought I was something. So now I need to get better. So for me to get better, I need to turn up and constantly for the next year be reminded that I'm that piece of shit that is not who they thought they were. But slowly but surely, you slowly build yourself up and get better and better. But to get better, you also have to critique yourself every time, criticize yourself, look where you went wrong, how you can get better. But to get better, you have to look at how I've got wrong, why did I lose there? A lot of people can't do that. A lot of people can't critique themselves or look inwards on themselves. They'll make excuses, blame this, make excuses, but they don't look at it in themselves. So people are always trying to find answers outside themselves. Most answers are inside yourself. Yeah. You taught that in school, right? And everything else, like you learn ABC, you go to learn maths and all that. When do people get taught how to think for themselves and look within themselves for answers? You see it all the time, gym hoppers and stuff like that. Yeah. Or I must get better because they're doing that, or the answers are inside yourself.
Yeah, it's discipline as well, isn't it?
Most of the time, man. Yeah. So it's a great tool. Jiu-jitsu, grappling, martial arts is a great tool for character building, making you a better person.
Yeah. Well,
and for doing it after years and years, it starts to rewire the way you think about a lot of things. You're able to see things from afar more rather than get sucked into stuff, and you'll be able to look at stuff a little bit more critically and analyze things a little better.
What do you think that's directly from?
I think so. It just gives you the tools to be aware of it. Some people never get that. That's what bends my head the most. It's like, say, somebody's trained martial arts for 10 years and ultimately they're still an arsehole. That bends my head. Yeah. Because you've never actually, we all have issues, especially guys. Guys have issues. We're all insecure in some way, or, you know, semi-narcissistic or something. Yeah. But it's like, and why did you start martial arts? I'll tell you why I started martial arts. And everyone always goes, well, for a hobby or fitness. I done it because I want to be the hardest guy in the room. That's why I want to do it, you know. But on that journey, you get humbled and you go through all these ups and downs, but you start to realize there's so much more to martial arts and jiu-jitsu than what you realize. And it's made me a better, you know, father, person in general, way to think about things, you know. And I don't think I would have had that without the tools that it gives me to be able to do that. But it's like the danger to it also is if you don't use it to look at yourself, your demons or your issues and that, and you don't use it critically in that way, some people use it to mask their issues, and it builds the ego. Yeah, so like that's the worst thing, because eventually that shit will catch up with you, you know, but you'll use it to suppress it and like I'm this guy now, I'm this jiu-jitsu guy.
Do people change their personalities? Obviously I haven't been in it long enough, but you get a guy who comes in and he's like maybe either really kind of quiet and a bit thing, and then he gets good at jiu-jitsu and then just becomes a bit of a fucking bellend? Or do you get it the other way, someone comes in as a bellend?
It has happened sometimes, I guess. I think so. Like I made the mistakes early on. I think sometimes, so like for example, belts, they drive me mad, giving out belts and stuff. Yeah. If it was down to me, I'd fucking get rid of them all.
What'd you get rid of belts?
I'd get rid of belts, or maybe at best I'd probably just have no belts and a black belt. Once you get good in 10, 12, whatever it is, once you're a black belt, you're a black belt. Until then, you're just an apprentice.
Yeah.
You know, because it creates, and I don't care what anyone says, it creates, I want my blue, but people want these goals all the time, these little goals, and I get that to a point, but it's also, it's like you try to get a goal. It's like the guy that wanted £1 million. You give him £1 million, now what? I want another £1 million. Yeah. Where does that end? Do you know? So you got to enjoy the journey. That's the most important thing. If you're not enjoying the journey, if you're not enjoying what you do, that's what gets you good. Right?
I'm completely fucking addicted. I say to Paul all the time, I've never been so addicted to it.
You do a 9 to 5, right? You do a 9 to 5 job, and then you want to go train. It's like ultimately you will get tired of that unless you enjoy it. Yeah. And it's the enjoyment and the social aspect that comes along with that, and the friends and the camaraderie and stuff like that. But the whole belt thing is like, it's not so much in some gyms now, but it used to be so bad. But like, I want a blue belt, and everybody's jolting to get their position for their blue belt, right? And then they get it, and it's like now they've set this like stepping stone for themselves, this platform for themselves that no white belt must ever beat me. And they sort of then, you can create a dynamic where everyone's like got this ranking order where they can sort of look down on each other or look up to each other, and everyone's pushing out the way. Fuck all that shit. Like, who gives a shit? Enjoy what you do. Enjoy losing. Like, if you can enjoy losing, because losing is what teaches you to get better. If you can do that, and it's hard, that's what's going to propel you to excel quicker than everyone else, you know? But, you know, now I'm a blue belt, I can't get beat by a white belt. So when they start to get good, it's like, shit. What do? You go back to the guy that turned up to the gym making excuses up for himself.
Right, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's all bullshit. It's all ego bullshit, and you need to get rid of that. So for me, with my gym, I have a certain thing that I set up through my one-on-one sessions and all that I try to extract that as soon as possible. But if ultimately, if it's down to me, I would probably just get rid of the belts.
Don't they, doesn't like the B team boys, obviously they do no-gi, but I think Craig Jones was saying something really similar the other day, saying like, just fucking chuck belts away.
Yeah, well, Nicky Rod's still brown belt technically, isn't he? I think. So
just get rid of them.
Clearly, it doesn't matter. But no, it's an interesting point though, because if I'm honest, certainly in my 20s, I think outside of jiu-jitsu, I didn't have much else going on. So being a blue belt at the time was so important to me because it was like my identity. And like Kenny already kind of mentioned it about, you know, and I think you asked a question about, do people become like this thing?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I was a bit of a loser, but I was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu and was cage fighting. So that was my identity. And then I got injured, couldn't train. And then you suddenly have to figure out something else that is your identity. And I think sometimes people do get wrapped up in that. And that's why
it puts pressure on you too. And it's just like, it hinders your growth. So I see some people come in and they are just so naturally like adapt to being good at it. They just have a bunch of things that collide together well, and they learn very well. And they get good very quickly. And I've made the mistake myself. I was saying to somebody, like, I would give guys a belt because they're so good. I'd give them, like, they got to blue belt level and I'll give them that belt. But the problem is, because they haven't actually served the same amount of time like you normally would, they've got good really quickly, and they're not stupid. Like, everyone's looking at them thinking, wow, you're really good, and people blow smoke up their ass, or like, you know, they win a few tournaments and stuff. Now they got that blue belt very quickly, and it's like, it can create your own little ego inside yourself. When that happens, everyone else is going to get better eventually. Everyone below you is going to get better, and as that starts to creep up, it's like they can't handle it. They're like, oh shit, and they're starting to get annoyed, or they roll a little bit more angrily, or they have little hissy fits and stuff when they're training, and they forgot what got them fucking good in the first place. They were probably humble as hell, and they just enjoyed playing around and rolling for the sake of it. But as soon as someone starts blowing smoke up their ass, so I've made that mistake where I've given the belt too early, and it sort of it's hindered their own growth then. So I'm a lot more harder on giving belts out like that now, and I always base it on two things: performance and attitude. But the attitude overrides the performance. So, you know, even if someone's fucking amazing, I won't give them the belt if they're an asshole.
Yeah,
it's that simple. Because not only are you going to continue that, because one day you're going to teach this. You know, hopefully one day you'll continue and you'll pass this amazing art to someone. You got to do it in the right way. So it's like, you're going to go off and then teach them what the way you are with your ego. Like, it's not going to happen. Not under my banner. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
But at the same time, I've seen some people now, they served their time on it and they're probably not quite there yet. But I'd rather give them the next belt if their attitude's on point and they're training correctly and they're not training with their ego and they're helping everyone else out and they're being a team player.
Do you ever change like who you give belts to based on whether they're like a hobbyist or like a competitor?
Yeah, I think so. It's so hard as well. Like, I was thinking this a while back. I think there should be two belt systems if they're going to do them. One for competitors and one for people that are more like maybe coaching based more. Yeah. But it's like, you got to be one or the other. You got to be like you got to bring something to the table. Okay, so you're either competing or you're able to help your team members. You're able to coach, show them things, work with them. Do you know what I mean? So it's one or the other. And I also don't believe in I'm not so fussed about blue, purple, brown so much, but I'm harder on brown and then black, but not everyone's going to get to brown. Not everyone's going to get to black. Even if they've trained for 15 years, I don't believe you should get it just on time served.
That's what I was about to say to you. So is there situations where people get to brown belt and then you think, do you know what, I'll never see, maybe giving this person a fucking black belt, or it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, I do.
You know what I mean?
But you don't, it's just your own little thoughts, isn't it? But they could prove you wrong, and I hope they do. But it's some people just aren't. Listen, I wanted to be a fucking rocket scientist. It's not going to happen. Do you know what I mean? Some people don't pass every qualification. Do you know what I mean? It's the same here. So why are we giving things away? Because all you're going to do is water the sport down. You're only going to water it down. And ultimately, they're representing you or me in the 20 years that I put into something.
That's what I was about to say. So in a lot of sports, obviously, you have no belts or anything like that. So
yeah, but blue belt in boxing.
You what?
I'm a blue belt in boxing.
Is that a thing, is it?
No.
I was going to say.
I was going to say I'm a black eye in boxing, maybe, but a blue belt.
Yeah, but what I mean by it is you get some people who play football. Someone can play football from the age of 5 to 35 and be pretty shit at it the whole time. See what I mean? And it can be the same in jiu-jitsu, innit? You obviously got higher leveled people, and then you've got obviously people that are low level.
Yeah.
And then to get a black belt, really, it should be not on time served on how good you are and how much you can pass on that information.
But the only difference I think about these days is the time does have to be served, though.
Yeah, no, I don't mean that.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
What I mean?
I'm just saying, I didn't used to think that so much. I'm if somebody got to a blue belt within 8 months because they're that good,
yeah,
I changed my mind now, because it's not just the fact that, okay, they can perform to a blue belt or they can compete, but I think there's a lot of maturity that has to come along with those stages as well. And every time I've sort of given that belt out to the point where, because they perform well and they're at that level, but they're not mature enough for that time they haven't served, it's been detrimental to them in the long run.
Do you find that maturity comes with sort of almost calendar time or hours on the mat?
I mean, everyone's different and nothing's 100%, but generally, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because you see that a lot, don't you? Certainly with skills acquisition and people getting better. You've got some people that are hobbyists who might train 3 hours a week versus someone who maybe does it full time, who trains 3 hours a day or a morning, and obviously that person's going to get better from a skill wise much quicker. So I guess it's trying to understand.
As far as that, I mean, it's hours served, not the time served. Yeah, it's same with you. It's you trained 3 years and 3 times in 15 years. But you can't go around and say I've been training for 15 years.
Still got a purple belt.
That's a fucking record, that, man. 3 times in 15 years.
It's always just before Christmas as well.
Yeah.
Every time you
still
come
haven't sold an album yet, mate. Still haven't sold an album. Yeah, man, that's cool. Yeah, it's a funny one, the belt system, isn't it? Because I think, like you said, there's so many sports that just don't have belts. I mean, I boxed and then Muay Thai, then I met you and obviously did MMA initially and then Jiu-Jitsu. And I think training with you, it was about 2 years before I put a gi on. So belts weren't even a factor for a bit.
Yeah, I didn't wear a gi to Willow's brown belt.
Yeah, you pretty much don't now, right?
Not anymore, no. I mean, I went for a 4-year, once I got black belt, I went for a 4-year phase just wearing gi pretty much every day.
Yeah, in the supermarket everywhere, black belt on.
Yeah.
Just everywhere.
But no, it's a funny one. But yeah, I think, certainly when I was training in the early days with Kenny, belts certainly weren't an issue then until jiu-jitsu can become more of a singular thing. But compared to other martial arts, and I think this is why jiu-jitsu maybe is so effective, other than just the mechanics of how it works. But I think because you don't go through that grading process and you aren't doing dead drills, it is just grinding on the mat, and it's about application.
Why do we not do that? And I know, is there a specific reason, or is it just because it's Brazilian and it's not got?
Because we don't dead. We don't
do drills. And stuff
a lot of gyms do.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, I just don't. I started out with a straight blast gym. SBG, so even today, Karl Tanswell, who was my original coach, pretty much up to I was brown belt. when I look at, I mean, I've had other coaches as well, like really good high level. I've been lucky in that sense. I've had some very, very good coaches and mentors, but a lot of my ethos still comes from Karl and the way he approaches it. And it's all, SBG always talk about aliveness, and it makes sense. So if you look at a lot of martial arts or gyms, you see him doing dead patterns and katas up and down the mat or whatever it is. It's like, listen, we're in the game of timing, motion. You know what I mean? Like,
you talk about that a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Feeling.
It's like jumping on a surfboard, right? You go to I've never gone to surf school, but I'm imagining. So let's just go with this, right? You go to surf school, you lay the board out on the beach, you jump on it, they teach you how to get up on it, go left to right, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, we drilled that, 1 million times, go surf. Seas over there. It's like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, got to
because
feel it,
you got to feel it. You got to feel what that energy and that motion, and that's where the secret sauce is that everyone talks about, and that's what you got to master and control and bend to your will, or you bend around it. You know,
or you're the nail that gets flattened by it.
Yeah, you're that for many years usually.
That's what I feel. That's what I feel like, mate.
Yeah, it'd be good to run through it. I guess your background with jiu-jitsu and how you got to where you are now, because obviously I've got a pretty good understanding of your journey, and you mentioned that you've had some really good coaches.
Yeah.
So can you just chat us through?
I'll try to. I've got the worst memory, but timelines and stuff. But basically, I started out on my Saints on my own, all the guys there, but soon met up with Karl Tanswell, who was the head of UK Straight Blast Gym.
How did you meet Karl?
Glenn and Mark that used to train with us, they went on holiday to Portland, Oregon.
Right.
They trained it for 6 weeks. They went to train at Team Quest, which
Yeah,
was Randy Couture's gym and all that. But they went there for about a week, and then they trained. Around the corner was a Straight Blast gym. They went there and never went back. And they just brought back tons and tons of material they wrote down and all that, come back. And then we just started working from there. We got a bunch of DVDs, started working off those DVDs. Do you remember Vinny, the little Irish guy that came over once, white belt?
No, I don't think I
Well,
do.
he's a little guy. He was the first actual jiu-jitsu guy I'd met, and he was small, and he just whooped everyone's ass, and he was just like a good white belt. Do you know what I mean? What the fuck
It must have.
and I learned
felt
very
mental.
quickly, I learned very quickly, off him, techniques and bits like that, and developed. I developed pretty quickly from that point at that time, and then so I went off. Found out there was a Straight Blast gym in Manchester. Went up there.
So what's it? Sorry, you keep saying like Straight Blast gym. What were they?
So it's like a collection of gyms, like you have Gracie Baja or things like you have like their organization. So Straight Blast gym was a separate. They started out doing Jeet Kune Do originally. They were Jeet Kune Do gym, which is where the Straight Blast comes from.
Right.
Like Straight Blast. But you'll know Straight Blast from probably Straight Blast Island, but so that's where Conor McGregor trains at under John Kavanagh. So I went out there a couple of times as well. Then I pretty much trained there until brown belt. One of the reasons so I started out also with a guy called Gunnar Nelson who competes in UFC. So we both started out pretty much at the same time at Karl's, and he was at John's in Ireland as well. So we were training together, but
So you moved away to do it.
no, I didn't move away then. I was just now and again. I probably only went up there probably like 6-7 times to Manchester over a space of a few years. But then me and Gunny were, I think, brown belt. We just got our brown belts, and he went away to New York for a year. About a year, he came back, and then he was just like another fucking level. I was like, Jesus Christ, what are they doing out there? You are all secret sauce must be somewhere else. So that's why I understand these things that I'm talking about. Like, you always look outside, but so for me, I was like, Jesus Christ, like I want to get better, you know. And at that time, I won't get into this too much, but Karl had sort of disappeared off the radar a little bit. I spoke to him a few times and decided to go to New York with Gunny, so I went out there for about a year, I believe. I was out there.
What did you do for like work out there? Or did you just literally?
Yeah, just trained and just winged it.
Did you?
Yeah, just winged
Where was
it.
you staying to?
So I was staying with Gunny at a place, a friend of his. But then after a little while, I moved in with a guy called Eric Owens. So Eric Owens owns a gym called Mushi, and you'll see him a lot. He works with George St. Pierre and people like that. Yeah. He's one of my main mentors, changed a lot about the way I look at the game and stuff like that, massively. So I was trained over there at Renzo Gracie's for most of that year, under John Danaher as well. So it was weird because it's like at that time I'd be coming back and telling people there's a guy called John Danaher. He's like really good. And it's like he's like known as Jiu-Jitsu's best kept secret.
Yeah, I remember you coming back and telling us about this odd guy in the basement. No one had heard of him. No one knew at the time.
It's so weird though, isn't it?
Yeah,
like, you know,
yeah.
You don't know what he's going to
it's
become,
like,
really.
and then suddenly now he's like fucking.
He's the man,
He's
isn't he?
the man,
He's the man, isn't he?
It's crazy.
You know?
But Eric was one of his top guys and one of the coaches, and he set up his own gym. So I spent a lot of time because I was living with Eric and at his apartment, and then because he was setting his gym up, I was at his gym at Mushin a lot, and I was just sucking in information like constantly. I was learning a lot, and I'm not just talking about martial arts. Just talking a lot of things about the ethos and the way to think about things like fighting and approach to things. These are really intelligent like guys, really intelligent human beings that you can learn a lot from. Came back after about a year, and when I come back, I just ultimately had a bunch of white and blue belts to train with, and I was like, fuck, am I going to get better? But then I remembered like a lot of the things that Eric spoke about when I was over there and how to train. We were talking about Roger Gracie. A lot of them said Roger Gracie didn't get really, he was always good, but he got really, really good when he moved to London because he had the same situation. He had like white and blue belts to train with. Now, if you think about it, if you approach it in the right way, it's actually the perfect thing because I know I can beat white and blue belts. So it would make no real benefit for me to just go out there and play my A game and just beat white and blue belts up. But when we talk about aliveness training, it's like if I'm trying a new move out, you always want some kind of like form of resistance back, right? Well, there's nothing more perfect in this situation right now because anything I try new or try to improve or get more efficient at, I can apply it. But I have a bunch of white belts and blue belts that aren't going to beat me.
Yeah.
They're going to give that resistance.
You can manipulate them.
I can manipulate it. And not that, maybe I can force it a little bit. I can force it a little bit, but with the override rule that I always must pay attention to that, I'm trying to make that more efficient next time, apply and put less energy, less effort into it. So that takes a lot of discipline, but that's the stuff that I learned from like Eric and people like that, is that work ethic and that discipline towards how you think about training and the way you approach it. Add that to the foundations that Karl put in. I just think I had a really good mix of coaches. I don't know if that's by luck, coincidence, or maybe I created it a little bit. But
you must have been pretty dedicated and disciplined as well.
I was obsessed.
Was you?
I have an unhealthy obsession. To say
Still
the
do?
least. No, I've got a lot better.
Yeah.
I'm just too old and too tired, man. The kids wore it out of me.
Yeah, they do that, mate. Yeah, I was grinning as you were
I
talking.
just saw your face then. Like, his face is like, yeah, they do that to you.
I was laughing as you were talking about obviously the white and blue belts because I was one of those people back then. I remember you coming back and you would just be on this technique over and over and over until you get it, and then eventually I'd start defending it, and then you start getting it again, and it was like just a horrible
it's like
cycle.
A stepping stone. And at that point onwards, from when I came back, everyone thinks I got better in New York, but I didn't. It's when I came back, and I can literally tell you that week after week, I was getting better. I could literally feel the difference week by week. It was a weird period. For like 4 years straight, I was just improving every single week.
Yeah.
Until obviously.
Do you think like confidence and stuff like that helps with that? You know what I mean? It's like where you can manipulate someone all the time and moving. Do you think that sort of thing helps?
But like some people have confidence, some people don't naturally have confidence, but ultimately confidence comes from hard work.
Yeah.
I just think it's almost like problem solving though, isn't it? Because you're trying to hit a technique.
That's it.
Like I find this rolling with you now where you're obviously improving, certainly defensively. And some of the stuff that I used to do before, you now can put blocks in the way and stop it. So now I'm having to either try and just tighten up those techniques or just start sort of pairing them up with other stuff. So I think, it's more of a problem solving thing than a a confidence thing. So I find that quite fascinating about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it is literally like chess, isn't it? Human
It
chess.
is chess, and we were doing that when we were rolling. I was sat there and I didn't know how to get past your with like the little dog weave.
Oh yeah, I had the
and I couldn't work it out. I'll just sit there and I'll just be like trying it in my head, fucking work it out, because what I was doing wasn't working, if that makes sense. So I tried it once or twice, and then I can't remember what he'd done, but he'd done something, and I was like sat there like fuck's sake, and I said, oh, I'm just trying to work out what.
Do you know, it's so beautiful in that way. That's what, like, I get obsessed with things, but I also get bored of things very quickly, and it's never really happened. Or it took a long time for it to sort of fade a little bit in jiu-jitsu, because it's just so vast in its complexity. There's always things you can adapt and adjust. Even now, today, it's not. I don't change things massively and technically, but it's more like feel and just pressures and adjustments that I make, and those small little adjustments at a good level make a big difference. But that's what's fascinating about it. Just especially for women as well, but like I think for guys that have that competitive, combative energy in them, but at the same time, you go run on a treadmill or something. It's like, but when your brain's activated and you're having to think whilst under pressure and stress and like getting fit.
That's what I was about to say. The fitness side of it as a PT, like I love lifting weights, but doing cardio, I was like the laziest footballer ever. I admit it. I was shit at training, never wanted to train, never, I was, fucking hell, done everything through technique really, and never really wanted to run. Even though all my football, like everyone knows that. And then you come to jiu-jitsu, and I never once since I started jiu-jitsu thought, I'm too tired, or because it's
40 minutes goes.
I trained today, hour and a half, and it gone.
I remember back in the Saints days, it'd be like 4 hours have gone by, like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's so easy. And in Kirsty, my missus will say to me, she'll go, "Are you going again?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think," because it's what I want to go. Like I want to go, and I know it's good for me. It's good fitness. It's good outlet. Yeah, it's fucking.
There's a lot of things missing in modern society for men. I think it's such a good outlet for us.
I say it to my mates all the time. Obviously, they're all like, all play football and all that sort of shit. And then I say to them, like, they're going through all different stuff. We're all in our 30s, and we're all like going through different things and different stuff. And I say to them, like, just get on the mats. It'll make you feel better. It's fucking good for you. And then, getting them on the mats is hard. But I think if you can get people into it, it's there, isn't it?
And that's what's more important for me. I'm more interested in people taking it up and just developing themselves and enjoying it rather than the competitive side of it. It's good if they want to compete and stuff, but it's not really my focus.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, I'm 33, and don't get me wrong, I'm going to compete now and again, but I don't think it's like my primary focus. I just want to get good at it. I just love learning about it and love trying to progress, and that's what I like. And what I really like is that everyone you roll with is a little bit different. So you'll come up against someone who's slightly smaller than you, and your game changes. Then I'll come against, Paul, for example, who then I'm on the bottom and I'm having to defend fucking an hour, for example, and then I'll go against someone else.
He doesn't train for an hour.
No, in fairness, mate, it's 40 minutes.
Mate, I'm taking that 10 quid back that I paid you before. Yeah, man, it's cool. So you come back from New York with a brown belt. Yeah. And then how did you get black belt?
Honestly, so at that point, I didn't care about belts because I knew I was getting better, and I knew who I'd been training with as well. So I knew in my head where I was at. It wasn't something I needed. I needed this colored material to tell me I was this good, or I was just enjoying what I'd done, and I knew where I was at. You have half a brain with no limited the ego from it, and it's like, so I stayed at brown belt then longer than I was all the other belts because I didn't have a coach. So I was just staying in Plymouth, training with everybody, and just wanted to keep that momentum going that I had. And then Braulio Estima, who's a multiple time world jiu-jitsu champion, he was a top guy around at that point. I met him a bunch of times, done a few seminars. He was out in New York quite a few times, joined in on his, like, when he was training for the ADCC and stuff, helped join in and train some of that. He came down and done a seminar, and then we rolled a few times, and at the end of that he gave me my black belt. And it's quite funny because I think he and a few people said, you look like the most miserable guy ever that got the black belt. I wasn't miserable. One, I was tired, but also like, it sounded, so this, I don't want to sound arrogant here, but it's like I knew where I was at. So it's like that didn't change nothing for me now. So it's not like I'm being arrogant saying I know where I'm at. But my point being is that's why I say that belts don't matter, because if you're really paying attention to yourself, you know where you're at, you know what level you're playing around at, and how you're performing, if you're getting better. And that's all I cared about, is how am I getting better, and like by putting that work in. So this coloured material, but I was super proud to get it for someone like Braulio, because in my head it's like at that time my favourite jiu-jitsu players were Gordo Gracie, Marcelo Garcia and Braulio Estima. So to get a belt from one of them was
that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
So yeah, then that was that.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. I think you mentioned about knowing where you're at. I think that's an interesting thing as well, because I think obviously the belt's one way of measuring, but we've already talked about maybe the sort of the illusions that the belt can create, and also it's very subjective as well. And obviously the other thing to kind of measure where you're at is obviously competition. Yeah. Because I think sometimes, and I found this over the years, where when you're training with the regular guys and you kind of progress together, and sometimes you'll do better, other times other guys do better, and it's always very playful and educational, so you're not always scoring an A game anyway. And then when you obviously go and compete, that's when you kind of get a really good feel for where you're actually at. Yeah. Occasionally you get a new white belt come in and roll with them and you realise where you're at. But I think to people on a similar level, I think that's always a good way to measure. You mentioned already that you don't have a big focus on competing, certainly with the guys at the gym. But I remember you competing a little bit over the years. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've always done pretty good.
You did some MMA back in the early days, right?
Yeah, I'd done MMA before jiu-jitsu. I had a guillotine. That's all I knew. That's all I had was a guillotine, and I won my first one by guillotine. But yeah, I was more forced into that. I wasn't forced into it, but more like they wanted me to fight. Because I had stand-up background, learning some Vale Tudo and stuff. But the only reason I took up Vale Tudo is because I wanted to learn the jiu-jitsu side of it. Yeah. So that was the only place that they'd done it, and it had little snippets of jiu-jitsu bits in there. But yeah, so yeah, I competed. Bunch of tournaments, but I always done well, but beat some good names and had some tough roles with some big names as well. But it's crazy because I started late in the game, really. If you look at the guys I was competing against, they're probably training in Brazil when they were like 2 years old or something, you know what I mean? And I started when I was 24.
How long did it take you to get from your 24, 25 to get into like a high competitive level? Does that make sense? Like maybe not even your black belt, but where?
Well, it was so in the UK. So I won the British at brown belt.
What the British was it?
Yeah, British Open. So I didn't give up a point. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But then going to somewhere like America is a whole.
It's a standard that much.
It's a different ball game. Yeah. But I've done okay with that. Like, so when I was in New York, I competed in the New York Open, and I lost in the semis, I believe, to Karl Gracie. It was a close fight, lost by a point. Then Pan Am's, I done that a couple of years later. Fought a guy called Sinistro. I don't follow the scene, see.
So you just used to turn up?
I didn't have a clue who it was. And then apparently he was really good. It was probably the toughest role I ever had, whether it was in training or competition. He just felt infeasibly strong.
Savage.
Yeah, but that was to a close end. And he ran through everybody in that tournament within a few minutes. So,
right, okay.
And people come up to me after that when I was sat down, I was sulking because I hate losing. I'm a terrible loser, whether it's chess or thumb wars or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's my ego. But people come up to me saying, "Wow, amazing!" And I was like, "Why do they come up to me saying that?" I was like, "I just lost."
Yeah,
but I didn't realize this guy was supposed to be really good. So yeah, and then also I train with a lot of top guys as well. So I was always better in training. I struggle a little bit in social settings, so I've never that great. I never perform at my best in those situations. I'm just not really a people person.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Just not feel comfortable in that sort of setting.
No. I don't like the restraints of it either, like time and points and stuff like that. I don't like the restraint of it because, like, well, you're the most athletical guy in 10 minutes. It's like, you know what I mean? But Claudio Silva.
Yeah, I saw that one live.
Yeah,
I was there,
yeah, I fought him twice.
Yeah.
When he was a black belt, I beat him when I was a blue belt. That was like, I took his back. I was like really good at the time. That was probably like,
I was a blue belt and you beat a black belt.
Yeah, and because in Urban Gorillas, I believe that Urban Gorillas, I think the competition was. This was back in the days when like had all sorts of.
How are you fighting a black belt at blue belt?
Well, I don't really know, to be honest. It was a long time ago, but it was earlier days, so like there's not so many people.
Saying,
They used to just have like it would be like advanced and beginner, and if you were basically blue belt or above, pretty much you're advanced, so you could be fighting anyone.
yeah.
Now.
And he was really good. He fought in the UFC. Like,
recently.
Yeah, and then I fought him a bunch of years later and had a close fight with him too then as well. So
yeah, it was that one that I saw. I think that was in Stevenage, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because you fought. You had a really good match with Dan Strauss as well, didn't you?
Yeah. And the tournament before that at that same place was a guy called, I can never remember his name, Cristiano something. He was, I think, Roger Gracie's cousin. He was like the top guy at the time. And I beat him. That didn't go down too well with a lot of people, but
why do they
jiu-jitsu politics and that? It was like, you know, he's our boy, you know what I mean, all that stuff. A lot of ass licking in this game, man.
Yeah, I've noticed.
Yeah,
I think with you mentioned about the sort of the points thing and the structure. I don't think there was much submission only back in the day, was there?
no. So that one was
it?
Except for the second half,
Right. Okay.
which is what threw me off, which annoyed me. So like when Dan Strauss,
Yeah.
So when I fought Dan Strauss, we had a good match. He was I passed him a couple of times, I think. So ultimately, if you think of that as normal jiu-jitsu, I would have won on points.
Yeah.
But this is the point. It doesn't fucking matter. But he was smart because then after like the first 6 minutes, the last 4 minutes, they start to point it or they base it on how many attacks you go for, right? So then Dan Strauss came in and instantly pulled guard. I was like, stupid. Then within a minute, 30 seconds or whatever, I suddenly realised why he'd done it. And I was like, sneaky motherfucker. Because I've got to get out of that and try and pass his guard before I ever get an attempt to hit submission, whereas he's now in closed guard and he's able to throw up triangles or guillotines or whatever. So this is the thing with competition. It's very different to the reality of fighting in some ways, because ultimately a fight will be, well, we just keep going until one of us is dead. Do you know what I mean? That's sort of what's happening. Whereas you add a singular kind of rule or a singular kind of point structure, it changes everything. Time, rounds, all that stuff changes everything.
Yeah, I look at it now, and I think that now, and it's like some people just play for points, don't they? They never really go for submissions, so just play for points, and just a bit fucking boring.
I'd never enjoyed the points in jiu-jitsu.
It's like if you say you got a 6 minute round. I mean, not a lot's going to happen in 6 minutes. It's quite two evenly guys. It's going to be hard to get a submission in 6 minutes. You're evenly matched. So it really comes down to who really is the best athlete in those 6 minutes. Because it's just instantly out the gate.
Yeah, although the best tactician, I think, as well.
All that, yeah. But I think you need time. Like jiu-jitsu is really about cooking your opponent. It's about the smaller guy beating the bigger guy, but you can't just go out and run through him. You have to manipulate him, slow him down, cook him a little bit. When I say cook him, tire him out, and then sort of guide him in a way where you can set something up and then catch him. That takes time. You can't just go out there and do that against people that have half a game. So especially if they're bigger and if they're more athletic, a lot of the steroids that are in the game, a lot of guys got busted.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no surprise to anyone.
I know, like people in the comments going, I can't believe it. Like, you're fucking joking. Have you seen a brew? Like, he's fucking cyborg.
It bends my head how they can't look at them and go, you can't stereotype or you can't judge. Well, we all judge, and you don't have to have half a brain cell to realise like they're on something, because the hours they put in. that they claim, 4 hours a day training or whatever, your body will not sustain that amount of muscle in that amount of
Not
training.
at its age.
No.
It's just your testosterone starts dying from like age 30, 28 even sometimes, and depending on who you are and whatever, you know, there's no way, unless you're like some sort of Greek god, but do you know what I mean? 99% of people are never looking like that at 43.
Yeah. No, he's a big old boy. I literally bumped into him when I was in Vegas when Brad was competing at the Masters Worlds, and I was just walking along and some fucking lump like just came in the opposite direction and I nearly collided with him, and it was a sideball when he was
Did your chest go out like, what's up?
No, I grew a vagina when I saw him. Mate. He was fucking ginormous. But,
but how do you feel about that though? Do you think it should be banned? Do you think all that shit? Because my opinion of it, and this is the honest thing, is like, if everyone's going to do it, then everyone does it, and then that should be all right. The only reason I'm a bit more like, I'll let it happen a little bit in jiu-jitsu, a little bit more than other sports, is because it is grappling. Does that make sense? Like, like if you do it in boxing or in,
where you get traumatized to the head,
you could kill someone by punching them too hard. That there should definitely not be allowed. But with grappling, I know it's like grips and you know, but realistically, you're not going to kill someone because you can, you know, hold them or control them. That's my only thing. And I don't know. I don't think jiu-jitsu is big enough in getting the viewership to then tell their athletes at the top of the game when they're not paying them enough that they can't take those substances at times. Whereas if they were paying them and they were getting like fucking loads of money from it and they were legitimizing it and it was on TV, I'd be a bit more like thing. But that's just my view. But I don't know. What do you lot think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting point, I think, regarding the lack of head trauma, because you're right. You know, you're not going to put somebody, you know, in a coma and then potentially never wake up. But I don't know. You're potentially, in a roundabout way, I guess, by taking steroids, almost to some extent forcing other people to take steroids to be able to compete on your level, and then as a result, there's a knock-on health effect to that. So
I don't think there is an answer. I don't.
Yeah, because it's just an opinion.
If you ban it, you're always going to get somebody that's going to cheat. Yeah, and they'll get away with it too if they're smart.
The thing is that the organisation isn't big enough to just random drug test people. It's not like they're not going to turn up. Yeah, they're not going to turn up to your house, are they?
And do you know what? Also on top of that, it's like, well, injury prevention. You know, you're never going to have a diet that will sustain the amount of hours you want to put the training. It's like
you saw it in the UFC, didn't you? When USADA came in those, you know, sort of years ago, all these top athletes suddenly just got injured repeatedly and. Yeah, just dropped off the radar.
It also, I guess what annoys me the most is it does take away the technical side of it. Like, who's best technically at this game, you know? Yeah. Because I guess, I don't know much about them, but I guess steroids will also affect everybody differently and work really well for some and not. I don't know. But it's like, who's good without all that shit in them?
I think it's, but I think as well with that, it depends on the person who's giving them their information on the steroids, for example. So like, you know, the people that got that banned. So you got Cyborg, who just had like testosterone in his body, and he basically takes TRT, elevated TRT, I might add, but takes TRT. Then you got some of them that were taking like nandrolone, Tren, you know, really harsh substances with really bad esters, things that will fuck you up long term. And it was a couple of the younger guys that were doing that. So you look at it, and that's the thing with steroids. It's such a wide berth. Do you know what I mean? There's testosterone over here, which, again, some blokes might actually genuinely need if they're competing at over 40. You know, that they will need it because they might have, you know, a low level naturally, and then it's proving that.
or a low level unnaturally.
I can feel 90% of the time if somebody's on it. And there's a bunch of people I've competed against. I know 100% they're on it. Just by, I know, I roll with people every day. I know what sort of pressure and amount of pressure it can take, how long it can sustain that pressure. And everyone's different. But you do this for hours and hours every day on multiple people, you get a real good idea of like what they can take and what they can't. And there's some freaks out there that I'm like, you are taking some shit to be able to deal with what's being put on you right now. I mean, I won't bring names up, but there's some people, their bicep was out pressuring my core power, and it's just like, and for about a straight minute too. And I'm like, that's just ridiculous. They're ridiculous.
Yeah. But again, that's an example of where it's just being a fucking abuse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's where, you know, it's such a grey area, isn't it? Because like you said, you can take just testosterone because you actually need it, all the way to taking tren and be a fucking monster, you know? And that's the issue you've got with it. And that's why I honestly think that's why testosterone is banned. Yeah.
Well,
it's
it's
stuff.
yeah, but
especially that.
Well, the UFC had this thing, didn't they, with TRT, where the athletes were allowed to use it, or certainly in Brazil they were allowed to use it from recollection. And then you had certain athletes like Vitor, for example, who suddenly just had this massive resurgence and his testosterone levels through the roof. And then it got to a point where they were like, right, that's it, no one's fucking using it.
I think I will argue that only Vitor should be allowed to take TRT because goddamn, he's fun to watch.
Yeah.
That shit.
Yeah. But I think that was while Chael Sonnen retired, at least from the UFC, because he was on it. He admitted it was because he'd done steroids in his younger years, needed TRT now, even at a sort of competition age, wanted to have a family, and needed TRT because he'd crushed his.
That was the other thing I was going to say. If they've abused steroids, like these young lads now that have got tren and all these different things in their body, it could shut down their system.
Yeah.
And that is a real thing. Like if you take
What's tren?
So trenbolone, it's like a really, really harsh steroid. But do you know, like, say, like top end bodybuilders?
Yeah,
that's what they'll take. You know, it's one of the harshest steroids.
Yeah, it's arguably above and beyond what you'd need to be good at jiu-jitsu. That's for sure.
Yeah, make you better. Massively. How would you get this stuff?
I think it's arguable, mate, whether it does or not.
Yeah, exactly. It would just like inflate you. But again, the point would be that if they're taking that and then they're going right, they're banned, they can't take it anymore for whatever reason. They shut down their system. They are fucked because if they can't even take TRT to compete, that it would have ruined so many fighters because, you know, they just wouldn't be able to fucking function.
Surprise you pay though, right?
Yeah.
We could talk about that all day. I wanted to talk about injuries actually because I've had my fair share. How has your body held up over the years doing so much jiu-jitsu for so long?
I was lucky for a long time until about 6 years ago, 7 maybe now. God, time goes so quick. Maybe 6. That's sort of why I stopped competing. And then, whereas I used to train 4 hours a day, I probably train an hour a week. Do you know what I mean? It's my back started playing up about 6 years ago or so. No one knew what it really was. Had MRI scans or specialists or endless physios. I must have spent about, I'd say 4 or 5 grand of ultimately collectively finding different physios, some that were highly rated when I was in New York, when I was in Iceland, and different people. No one really, there's a lot of bullshit in that game, physios, and there's a lot of bullshit and just regurgitated shit from a book that they read in university. And they all come back with similar things. Some were way out there, and it just, you know what I mean? Like, I deal with the body myself a lot. I may not know the names of muscles and stuff, but I know what feels right. I know what adds up and makes sense. And none of them made a lot of sense. Like, in certain bits did. Then I sort of give up in it at the end because what happened was it sort of took my love away from training because every time I stepped on the mat, I'd be in pain for days. So it got to the point where the motivation and love for getting on the mat wasn't there because I was like, then it was probably about a year and a bit ago, somebody recommended another person to me. I went there now thinking, fuck it, it's just going to be another fucking same old shit. But and I always followed the routines that they'd gave me. But so I went and saw this person, and I could tell within probably 2 sessions I had with them, they made sense. They were being honest. They weren't saying, well, if you do click this or pressure this, then come back in 2 weeks' time. Like, shut the fuck up. I know your game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
right.
So they gave me honest truth, and I collectively, because I research and look at things myself and put puzzles together of what happened and what's changed in my body. And I had rough ideas of what caused it, what might have happened, and what might be happening. But I never said this to physios in the end because I was like, I want you to figure this out and see if this person I saw within 2 sessions made a bunch of points that they thought it could be this, and it instantly made sense. I I was like, fuck that. It put all the little pieces that I roughly had, it put them all together. So I see that as I think you've had someone else spoke about it.
Yeah, Gerald spoke about it.
Brooke.
Oh, yeah.
Walklin.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody recommended. I saw her, and it, honestly, like, I couldn't recommend her enough. I send everybody to her now, and they all come back great reviews. She's just honest. She'll be like, she'll give the information, tell you what's what. And she said to me the other day, she's like, do you know what? I'm ripping myself off. Really, I shouldn't just give them the information and fucking. But she goes, I can't do it any other way because I can't be dishonest. But it's like, get that information, tell you whether it's worth seeing her or going somewhere else, and whether you need to put that time in or whatever.
But again, that if she's like that, the long-term gain she's going to get, she will.
The reputation long-term.
She'll go up here when people get found out. I've seen physios throughout the years. I've had loads of shitty little injuries through football and stuff like that. And a couple of times I go and see a physio and he'd look at my knee, for example, and he'd go, I think it's this. And then I would either be like, I'll rest it for 2 weeks, come back, see me.
Yeah.
Rest it for 2 weeks. So you do the same, couple of exercises. And there was a guy down Liscard called Fitfile. He had all the kit.
Tim Saunders,
yeah. But it was his business partner, Drew. So I think Tim retired. But Drew, he's fantastic. And he's a really, really good physio. But the thing that changed with Drew was that he had the kit. So then he scans my knee and realises I tore my VML. So I'd seen physios on and off for, months really. And they were saying all fucking different things, meniscus tear, this tear, It wasn't. I tore my VML, which comes off of my hamstring onto my knee. Tore it. It was like a stapler. It's like that. So I was trying to play football like this on and off for months. Yeah. But because he, again, has the equipment to be able to do that, it's just a fucking game changer, And he has the knowledge, but also he don't bullshit you. He just went down and he was like, look, if this doesn't pick up anything, I don't know. And he was literally like
that's the thing. That Brooke's exactly the same. She's like, she doesn't know something. She don't know. But she'll go. She's obsessive as well with her art. So she'll go away and figure it out and look at it and study things. And that's what you want. You want somebody who's, listen, I always talk about this with coaches. I'd rather have a coach that knows less and is very passionate than somebody that knows a lot and doesn't give a shit. And that passion for something means a lot. You know what I mean? It means you're interested, you're invested, and you care, and that counts for a lot. Yeah.
So your back trouble, it was lower back, wasn't it?
Lower back, yeah, on one side. Ultimately, it came down from playing too much guard.
Yeah.
So I went for a long phase of guard play. That's what I was known for. Like,
I still don't think I've ever passed your guard.
Passed my guard. And I was very good for guard play because that. And the reason I'd done that was for the competition because it made a lot more sense of where the rule set was and whatnot. But and I just enjoyed it. But yeah, just laying on your back, with your hips slightly rolled up for so long, with a weight on you. If you think about that as a bad posture for squatting and just constant little pressure reps like that. It's usually the only one that figured that out within 2 sessions. And it's like instantly made sense because I knew it was off my back that these problems were being caused. And that's what changed when I sort of changed my posture off the bottom. And it was around that same period. So yeah.
And are you pain-free now or is it?
No, every day. I'm always in pain. It's not. And this is my own fault. I'm quite lazy these days. So if I stuck on the rehab, it'd be a lot better. It's just motivation. I've got a lot of other things going on in life right now. And
I guess it's a bit of been there, done it a little bit as well. Do you know what I mean?
Mate,
You've been doing it for so
like,
long.
what am I going to do? I want to go back to being in my prime and then I won't be that guy again. Do you know what I mean? The motivation's not there. Even like people ask me sometimes, do you want to compete again? I'm like, I'm 41. I'm like, I don't.
Are you only 41?
Yeah. 41, 42. What year is it? Maybe I'm 42. I am 42. I am 42.
Are you actually 42?
Yeah, I am. How old are you?
40.
Oh, fuckers.
Fucking, where was he doing his paper round? Hell. Delivering to Jimmy Savile.
So...
Edit.
Nah, we'll keep it in, mate.
So in regard to injuries, so I guess sort of with your coaching hat on, because obviously jiu-jitsu by its nature, people are fucking injured all the time. If they're not injured, they're at least banged up. So what advice would you give to students or people out there listening that are sort of doing jiu-jitsu but managing injuries? Like, how did you work around the injury for a period of time? What would you advise to people?
I'm the worst guy probably to ask for that personally. I would always force through injuries. So when my back started, every injury I just kept training most of the time, unless it was really painful. And I would take the minimal time off and get back in. But with my back, I just kept forcing through it for a year because I thought it would just go away. But by doing that, I probably made it a lot worse. But for injuries, the worst thing you can do though is stop. That is the worst thing. Like with any injury, the number one thing, people put ice in and stuff, that's a lot of bullshit. They know that. Now, the guy that come up with the whole rice thing, he retracted all that stuff. That's just
that's really out of date. Yeah.
But the best thing is mobility, keeping it mobile.
Yeah.
But obviously not to the point beyond pain. Like you want to keep just before pain and keep the mobility going. But ultimately, prevention's better than cure. So don't get injured. And there's a reason if you keep getting injured, there's probably a reason you keep getting injured.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit, because I wanted to ask, I guess, if someone's relatively new to the gym or even a hobbyist and middle-aged like me coming in, like how you best progress and maybe stay injury-free. So talk to us about the style of training that you should maybe do.
Don't put pressure on yourself. Don't create expectations and don't create anxiety for yourself. So that's why it's important to learn to enjoy losing straight away. So you get that shit out of your system. It's like, what's the worst thing that happens? That's it. That is it. The rest of the weird shit that you think's bad about that is in your head. But that's all that happens. Okay? So if you can learn to like just enjoy that process and relax, that's the number one thing, is just to relax and try not to be there to satisfy your ego. Try not to be there to try and beat people. Just be there to learn. Because if you're there to learn, you don't mind about the outcome. The outcome's irrelevant. It really is. It's the process that's important. The process will give you what outcome you want, but you got to make sure you pay attention to the process. So the journey is always the key. Enjoy that part. So relax. Don't be there to try and prove nothing. Try to eliminate. We all got ego. It's about controlling it. I've got a massive ego, but like it's about controlling it where you can. And that's the biggest thing. Don't put pressure on yourself. Don't feel like I've got to perform. No one cares.
When I talk about it to people sometimes, especially people in the maybe like mid 40s and 50s, early 50s, I go, I'm too old. And I'm like, you're not. Do you know what I mean? You're not, because you can do it at any age, really, couldn't you?
Yeah, as long as you train correctly and safely and sensibly. It's like people's like, train, it's like hard work, but it's not. It's train smart. Smart work. Smart work beats hard work, but smart work with a good amount of hard work is get that balance right. You need to put the time in, but be smart with that time.
So you mentioned about obviously mindset a little bit there, and obviously not putting too much pressure and anxiety on yourself, and then about sort of training smart. I mean, in regard to the techniques you're doing and I guess the volume of training and the amount of effort you're putting in to maybe sparring or anything else, what would your advice be there in regard to training smart? What does that actually look like from a physicality point of view?
So like what you mean, like a young person that wants to get good?
Yeah, start there.
Yeah. Think of it as a bar chart. Okay, so the way I trained was incorrectly. A lot of the time I would go in and not warm up. I'd go in, train hard, like hard sparring, and that would be it. And it's not the best way. So once I started understanding that, that's really where I developed quicker. But it's about, imagine you got a bar chart and you have to, again, it's about critiquing and looking at yourself and that. What am I good at? Where's my weaknesses? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm not just talking technically, but mentally, okay, as well. So it's about downloading as much software without damaging the hardware. So that's an old SPG saying, okay? So if you go into training and just go 100 mile an hour, 1, you're likely to get injured. 2, you're going to tire your fucking self out within 30 seconds. And 3, after time, that becomes quite demoralizing, demotivating. It's just like, again, do you know what I mean? Week after month after year. So a lot of it's about feel. The grappling is feeling. So we've got to learn to surf, right, on the water. We've got to feel it. So I always use like analogies of like, you're walking down the street and there's some ice and you slip on it. What's the first thing you do? You stiffen up and then you take a fucking fly. But if I said to you there's ice there, you'd run at it and you would jump on it and bend your knees and just be soft, right, and supple and float it. It's the same with training. You've got to feel what's going on. So to feel things, you have to be relaxed. Okay, that's and that's really where timing comes from. So timing isn't speed. Timing beats speed. But the way I get good at timing is by reading things, and the way I read things is by feeling things because it's grappling. And the way I read things is by having a relaxed mind. My mind's able to process and see what's going on. So you need to approach training constantly like that. So you constantly can put hours and hours of training in, but at a nice low pace. It's like driving, right? First driving lesson, what do you not do? Go at 100 mile an hour. Right? It's not possible. It's not how your brain works. So you go in the car and you slowly build up that pace.
I think that's the biggest thing though, isn't it, for white belts especially? They come in and, again, you roll and...
They're rigid because they've got a lot of anxiety. It's like they don't know what's going on. They don't know what to do.
And
so that's why it's important to get that out of the system very, very quickly.
Yeah, and I think that advice probably applies almost more so to somebody who's older, maybe starting. And
it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Yeah,
because at least the young uns have got, they've got the body and the testosterone levels to recover.
Yeah.
Whereas I think
sometimes older guys also have that thing of like, I'm going to let no young guy fucking get one over on me. Do you know what I mean? There is that. I mean, that's normal. Like, you know what I mean? Little modern snowflakes beating you up. Can't be having that now, can we?
do you like? Well, I wanted to kind of chat a little bit about sort of running flow and what it's like to run a martial arts club and the fun and games that probably has. But before we get into that, do you see like a lot of middle-aged guys starting jiu-jitsu now? Yeah,
more so. To
really?
be honest, I think. Yeah, I think it's more middle-aged people starting it. Yeah, okay. To be honest, we got a whole good bunch of youngsters and that, especially the, Harrisons and stuff at 19-year-olds now.
I was watching Harrison the other day, sparring. I knew he was fairly good.
He's a workhorse, man.
Fucking hell. Yeah, he's quick, isn't he?
He's a workhorse.
I don't want to big him up too much.
He's ugly, so nature compensates.
It does, mate. It gives you something to take something away.
But you have certain people like that. So he's one of the guys that sort of have good hopes for. There's a couple other ones there as well, and Zach and that, but he's the one that's proved himself so far.
Yeah, and he does. He's dedicated. Like he is dedicated. Apart from missing a PT the other week.
If you want to be good at this, if you want to be competing good at this, you have to be fucking obsessed. Nothing else matters.
Yeah, I see him in the gym all the time, mate. He spars. He does everything.
Thinking about it outside, visualizing stuff, all that's part of it.
Yeah.
Being the best at something is very different to just being good and training to be good or whatever. If you want to be the best, it's you got to commit your life to it, because if you're not, somebody else is.
But then people think that's weird, don't they? If like you do commit to something like that from the outside, no one really understands it, do they? Until you are fucking good. Does that make sense? Until you are the best.
Because a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't want to put hard work into anything in life. A lot of people are jealous of people that do put hard work in stuff, because they haven't got a set of bollocks to commit to something. Yeah. They go to a 9-to-5 job, follow what their parents told them, then hate their lives by the time they're 40. So
yeah, it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. So for martial arts, I think not many people would dispute it's probably one of the best facilities in the country. Certainly the Southwest, beautiful gym. You mentioned already that you're not much of a people person. How does that dynamic work? So how, running a gym?
Yeah, I don't even know how I ended up there, to be honest. It was not a plan. It was not a plan. I always done this because I enjoyed it. Simon Holmes left, didn't he? Remember?
Yeah,
he left. Yeah. He disappeared.
Went off to be in a band.
He was our first coach. He left. No one else to take the reins. I took it and sort of continued taking it, because then it sort of paid my way and allowed me to train. And so I don't know how I end up here, but I think in life you get luck, but you create your luck sometimes as well, But yeah, I am very lucky now, even though I moan about it a lot. I love a good fucking moan, but yeah, it's good. If it wasn't for that place, I've had a rough couple of years. So if it wasn't for that place, it's kept me together. To be honest, the people there and just being around
we have got
people,
a good community down there.
I love the community. You know what I mean? They're all good people. It's like the funny farm, isn't it? They're all like autistic in some way or another, and I'm somehow in charge of that shit. But yeah, I love it. It can be hard sometimes because stress, running the place, day-to-day stresses that you have, and then you go there. But I think what it is that I spend so much time now with people in a day. It's not that I'm not a people person. It's just by the time that day's out, to turn the fuck off. Because you do have to put a little bit of a mask on. You can't just be like fucking, you have to be, hi, how you doing? When you're there, people do want a piece of you. They do want to come and chat or whatever it is. And it's like a little bit of a host. And that tires me out when people, because it's just very draining that I got to pretend to be nice when I'm just in a bad mood or something.
I'm in exactly the same boat. I do like, you see how much PT I do. I do like 38, 40 sessions a week, and each person, no matter how I'm really fucking feeling at times, I've got to be like, oh, you're right. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Which again, does get tiring.
And for me, mate, like I'm authentic. I am who I am. So I have to play a part. It taxes me because I've got to think about how I've got to behave. Like this podcast, like I'll be really PC.
Yeah, I got to be too PC, mate.
I was like, what does PC mean? Like a proper cunt?
That's not computer, mate.
Didn't you call Paul Jimmy Savile earlier or something?
He did. Yeah.
But so I think by the end of the day, I'm spent a lot of time, and I just want to turn off. And then people that my personal life people that in my relationships, they're like, "What's up with you?" And I'm like, "Nothing. Oh,
it's just a lot of people in it at times." Man. Yeah, it's a lot of people. But I think you're probably the same as me, though. You like your people that you're dealing with. So even if you're feeling a bit shit, sometimes they can make your day really well. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So you can go in there in a bit of a shit mood, and then they'll like actually lift your mood, even though you think, I actually don't want to see these people today. You'll see them and speak to them, and something funny will happen.
There's always there's always a drama at the gym. It's like a little EastEnders episode. There's always a drama or a little thing going on, and it is funny.
Yeah,
there's always some funny shit going down.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it since I've been down there.
Yeah, really it is like a massive family of idiots. It's pretty funny.
Family of retards.
And people from all walks of life as well. That's the other thing.
I was going to say that a minute ago.
Interesting cats there, man. Like I love listening to some, especially some of the old the military guys that have been around a little bit. You know, you got Kenny, Ben Newton, stuff like that. He'd be a good guy to get on at some point. Ben Newton, he's had an interesting life. Plus, you know, he had his own gym up the line, had deals with Reebok and stuff.
Really?
Yeah. He knew his stuff, man.
Yeah,
it's very good.
That's really cool.
But yeah.
No, I think that me coming from the outside into jiu-jitsu, at first I was like, oh, it's really fucking clicky. But it's not. It's that I've come from a team sport, and then you're going into an individual sport. Does that make sense?
But also as well, like if you walked into someone's house and there was a big family there, you wouldn't say it's clicky.
No.
Right?
It's family. It's family, yeah. And that's what it's like, yeah. And then I think as well, like you come in and you probably you guys that have been there for years and whatever, you must see people coming and going
all
a little
the time.
bit. So then like you're probably a bit hesitant to commit to a relationship, or like, you know, speak to someone too much.
I was in Sainsbury's
about
8 months ago. I was in Sainsbury's, or about a year ago now. I was with my ex-girlfriend. I was in Sainsbury's, and this guy's gone with his missus. Hey Kenny, how's it going? I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they're talking about everything. They're like, how's your kids? How's Maya? And I was there for 20 minutes talking. He left, and my girlfriend's like, who's that? And I'm like, I haven't got a fucking clue. The whole conversation. That happens a lot because people just come and go, and I've got the worst memory anyway. So,
but yeah, I imagine it just gets a bit like that at times, doesn't it? Just through. And jiu-jitsu has a lot of different types of people. It's probably the only thing. Like you can get everyone from like policeman, fireman to someone who doesn't have a fucking job, and someone who's fucking, I don't know, a doctor. We have a lot of doctors, and you know, it's a real mismatch of people in it. Like in it.
It is,
and then everyone's equal on the mat though, and that's what's nice. There's no pulling your job rank and
it doesn't matter if he's a doctor, he's still getting smashed by the fucking homeless guys living in a fucking truck. You know, it don't make a fucking difference, does it? You know, probably makes you want to do it a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, no, this is cool, man. A couple of quick questions, and I think we'll probably wrap up, mate. We've been going for a little while, and these are the ones that everybody loves, but. Highest percentage submission, if you had to name one, what would it be?
Well, for me or in general?
In general. So jiu-jitsu, I'm a newbie, I want to learn the best highest percentage submission.
Rear naked choke.
Yeah.
Any head choke, like any of the best ones. The rear naked probably the best one, but guillotines and side chokes and stuff like that. So anything with the neck. The choke's better than a joint lock, in my opinion.
Okay, why is that?
Because some people are flexible, some people don't give a shit about pain. But if you're getting choked out, doesn't matter how tough you're on, doesn't matter what drugs you're on, you go to sleep, and that's that. And it's a peaceful, quiet way to end something and not damaging. And once you put them to sleep, you can take their clothes off, tie them to a lamppost.
Stag do stuff, right?
Finger.
And the other question, just again a really common one, but best or most dominant position in jiu-jitsu?
I would say the back. I saw Roger Gracie talk today about the mount, but I just think it's an individual thing. But I think the back purely because, you can't take too much damage there. You can't punch you. It's all defense from that position. So yeah, it's all the same with mount as well. And the mount leads the back, and the back leads the mount. But it's the same position. One's face one way, the other face the other way. But yeah, for me, I'd say the back.
Yeah. To be fair, I've felt Roger Gracie's mount, so I can see why he fucking said that.
Right.
Because it's horrendous.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. But it's also
why was it so bad?
Well, he's massive for a start,
right?
But he's just where he puts his feet, just the pressure of his hips. He just makes himself so heavy.
He's like a lead blanket.
Yeah, it's a good description.
What? Just a quick one. Why are some people able to do that? They could be the same size, but the pressure on someone will feel like completely fucking different.
Because they have all the qualities we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Just they're able to analyse things better. They look at things, not look at the possibilities, but look at things fundamentally.
Just where they're pressuring you, like really pressuring your hips, pushing here, Yeah, it is weird.
They have a far better sensory feel to what's going on and connections and stuff like this.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. Anything else you want to ask?
No, well,
done.
I've got loads, yeah.
Kenny Baker, thanks, mate.
Who's the next person on her?
Who have we got next?
Cardiologist.
Yeah, we've got Doctor on next, talking about heart disease.
Gynecologist. Interesting.
Yeah, he's hoping to help me out a little bit. Try and get me back to jiu-jitsu. Nice one.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate it.
Cheers, my man. Thank you.